There's a famous quote that goes a little bit like this: imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If that is the case, then you could argue that there's no watch designer that's been flattered more than Gerald Genta. The famous designer is responsible for many of history's greatest watch designs, including the Patek Philippe Nautilus, the Bulgari, and of course one of the most iconic watches to this day, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Does this watch deserve its legendary status? Does it still hold up in the 21st century? Let's find out. It may surprise you to find out that the Royal Oak was designed in a single night in 1969. Audemars' managing director called Mr. Genta at 4 PM and needed a finished design the next morning. He worked through the night, taking a lot of inspirations from the marine-themed influences, very popular at the time, and in particular, deep-sea diving helmets and their visible screws. It was launched in the early 1970s, and nobody bought them. This was a watch launched around the time of the quartz crisis, and here was a steel watch at the same price as a gold watch with a rather controversial design. It was simply bad timing, and it was in fact a failure upon launch, even to the point where some employees were rumoured to have been given one to boost numbers. This didn't, however, stop Audemars Piguet from marketing, which as we know today turned out to be a pretty good investment. It's been said that Mr. Genta was probably a better bracelet designer than he was a case designer, and it's certainly evident in this bracelet design we're looking at here. It's also been said to have been inspired by the backs of seahorses. It's not only beautiful, but very comfortable to wear. Perhaps since it's not designed to be a racing, diving, or dress watch, it's simply designed to be attractive, comfortable, and functional. The integrated bracelet flows from the case, and the sophisticated construction uses parts that are all different in sizes. The alternating bracelet links and connecting studs are precision machined and individually checked and polished. It's quite addictive to see how all these details catches the light. The scissor clasp that needs to be carefully folded with the logo on top is a lovely detail and is solid in its construction. With the bracelet attached to your wrist, you feel the weight of it, and it's easy to appreciate the thoughtful design as you get on with your day. You know how we said earlier that Gerald Genta was said to be a better bracelet than case designer? If that is the case, then nobody told Hublot, Richard Mille, nor many other modern day watchmakers. The exposed screws and hexagonal design placed upon a block of steel is something that's inspired many watches of our time. It's easy to see how exposed screws may have been a controversial design upon launch, but how interesting is it to see this design element in many exclusive watches launched today? No less interesting is the crown, shaped like the case and rather bolt-like. It's signed, and thanks to its shape, easy to manipulate. One thing that has not changed since the watch was launched is the polishing and chamfering by hand. There's a lot of time, effort, and love going into this design. So the case and bracelet design is best described as iconic. What about the dial then? Forming the trifecta of historical designs is the Clos de Paris guilloche pattern. The brass dial is engraved by a burin, a precious metalworking chisel. A pointer rotates across the disc from the edges to the center. The system is combined with a tool that forms the spaces between the pyramidal squares. One can imagine the impact of one small mistake here. One tiny square clipped, and you'd have to start all over again. This is a luxury timepiece, likely to be scrutinized by a loupe, or even an unforgiving macro lens here on YouTube. Applying the logo and indices is no less important here, and it speaks again to a great design where such a detailed dial can be integrated with a flat logo, indices, and of course the placement of the white on black date wheel. One detail that is pure Audemars Piguet is the movement. It was always slim and beautiful to look at, but has been updated a few times over the years. The one we're looking at here is the updated Calibre 4302. It beats at 4 Hz, has a 70-hour power reserve, and is made in-house. It's a beautiful movement, in particular the skeletonized rotor, which allows for viewing of the deeper workings. The contrast to the steel case is extraordinary and will keep you looking for many years to come. We set out to find out if this watch still holds up in the 21st century. Well, look at our industry today. There are countless watches that have taken inspiration from many of Gerald Genta's designs, perhaps of none more than the Royal Oak. The Royal Oak will continue receiving minor updates and improvements, but this iconic design will forever remain the same. Perhaps much like in the 1970s, there will still be people that don't like this unconventional shape. But from my experience and the long waiting list, I suspect that Audemars Piguet has no issue selling the Royal Oak in the 21st century. Discover a full Audemars Piguet range on Time Only.